Thank you, Gay. And thanks for that kind introduction. I'm really excited to be here. I came to this conference, I think 2 years ago, and I'd done a little bit of work with PEG and had attended some of the West Central stakeholder group meetings, and really felt that there is that sense of community here with Synergy groups. This is a unique Alberta invention that's come out that I think a lot of other groups and companies looking to build relationships can look to for advice. So thank you all for having me here. Next, excellent. So I'm gonna take probably, hopefully no more than 10 minutes here just to put a bit of a framework around this conversation about building social license and effective community engagement. And I'm going to talk some big terms, and then hopefully my wonderful panel mates can put those into real life and tell their own stories. And then we can hear your stories afterwards as well, because that's always my favorite part. So as Gay mentioned, I'm familiar with this term social license to operate and became interested in it when I was doing my research a couple of years ago, because I wanted to know, why do companies enter into partnerships or try to work with communities? Specifically Aboriginal communities was what I was looking at. So I thought it would make sense to figure out what this term meant and some more information about it. And as it turns out, it's not that well understood. We sort of throw this term around and it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So I've got a few different definitions here that have popped up. This first one is sort of what I came up with from my research. And the important part in that first piece is that it's really the local community that grants social license. I mean, sometimes we think about the term social license and think, well, it must be, society in general that gives that social license. And as it turns out, the research shows, and I would argue from my practical experience, that no, it's not society at large, it's actually the local community. If the local community is on side with a project or a company, it's really hard for an outside group to come in and say, no, that's bad for the local community. You're gonna stand up and say, no, we know what's happening here. This is our area, this is our community, get out. Stop telling us what's good for us. Similarly, if a community is not on side with a project or a company, then it's also really hard to move that project forward. There's a lot of power that local communities have, and increasingly so, both through our regulatory process, but also just they're there and can make lives really difficult. So it really is that local community that has the power. The second definition, the important part here that I want to highlight is it's really about the community's perceptions of the acceptability of a company. So you can come in as a company representative with all the fact sheets in the world and all the great ideas that you have about community investment and what you're going to do for the community, but it's kind of like the mittens. If they don't want it, it's not important to them, it's not something that they value, then it doesn't really matter. You can have all the great intentions in the world, but if you're not actually listening to the community and you don't understand that it's the community's perceptions that grants the social license, you're not going to get it. And this third definition that I want to highlight is that it really is relationship-based, first of all. So it's about people, which can sometimes be difficult for big companies to wrap their mind around. And also that it's an intangible asset. It's not a piece of paper that you get. You can have your social license or start building trust and then have a setback and move a little bit back in the process. So it's something that you need to keep working at, but it is an asset for companies. It does make operations go more smoothly, and really it's like insurance against something bad happening, right? You've built up that goodwill, you've built up that relationship, so that when something does go wrong or there are misunderstandings, you can address it. But really, what all it boils down to is trust. The social license is about trust of the local community. So I wanted to show this pyramid that I came across that we've sometimes talked about social license as either you have it or you don't. And really that's just not the case. What the research is showing is that there's sort of this continuum of social license. And so I just want to take a couple minutes and walk through this here. So at the bottom, we've got withholding or withdrawal. So either you don't have the social license or you had it and you've lost it. And what this is basically, the community says either we don't know you, we don't like you, we don't trust you, basically get out of here. So that's that bottom level. What gets you to that next level of acceptance is becoming legitimate in the eyes of the community. And so what that looks like is that the community says, okay, well, you've come here and you've listened a little bit to us, you've told us about your company and in information in ways that we can understand. You say you're going to try to do some good things, and okay, we're not going to stand in your way. So this actually, when I was thinking about this, amounts to non-objection in our regulatory process, is that acceptance level. It's sort of that, okay, we know you, so you're going to be here, that's fine. The next level, and so if acceptance is non-objection, I just want to point out that that's kind of where we've set the bar right now in our industry. And I'd like to challenge sort of the panel and all of us to recognize that expectations are increasing. And I think Deb's going to talk a bit about how the regulatory process might change to meet those changing expectations. Because there's a whole lot more beyond just non-objection. And so when you cross that credibility boundary, you get to the approval stage. And that's where the community is saying, okay, you've been here enough. We've built a bit of a relationship. We know you. We actually believe that you're going to try to do what you say you're going to do. And it's okay that you're here. So we know you, and we think you're okay. We approve of you. And then that final level is what they're calling in the literature co-ownership, and I'm not sure that's the best term for me, but it's really where you have that sense of trust. So I kind of think of this as like a marriage, where you think about relationships that you've had where you really trust somebody, or really close friendships. And so you think about that and you go, well, how can a company and a community or a stakeholder group have a marriage? And can I tell you, it's probably a lot of work. I'm not sure that I can actually think of a scenario where that exists in the resource sector today. But that is the ultimate level of social license, where you have that trust. And it's sort of the easiest hard thing to do is to build that trust. And our panel is going to talk about how you build that trust, but it is those continuous interactions, that relationship building with many people in the company, not just the one person on the ground, because frankly, that one person is going to leave eventually. And then you're back to square one. So let's think about how a company can build that relationship with their stakeholders. So now I flip over to my other hat and talk about IAP2 for a bit. This is sort of my 30-second sales pitch. So IAP2 is basically a professional organization for people who are involved in community engagement or public participation processes. So snapshot, we're an international organization, so we're in 7 countries around the world. IAP2 Canada has members from coast to coast to coast with activities. We are professionals, we are academics, we are nonprofit organizations, so there's lots of different groups in IAP2, and specifically the Wild Rose chapter is the Alberta chapter, and one of the most active in the country. We've got a booth back there. And what they offer is professional development, networking opportunities, and that community so you can keep building, bouncing ideas off of each other. And I think they have at least 4 events between now and the end of the year for members to participate in. So if you're interested in IAP2, come talk to Gay or me or Carla or Deb, many people. And so what I've done, I'm not going to go through all of this because I want to hear from the rest of our panel, but I've put these on the table, or had our wonderful facilitators do that. And what this shows are the foundations of IAP2. So these are sort of general principles that apply internationally about community engagement or public participation processes. And so what I'd like to encourage you to do is to take a look at these. So the core values of public participation are basically saying, here is what IAP2 is putting forward is important for an authentic and meaningful engagement process. And so as you look through these, it might help to think about, okay, in my Synergy group, are we doing this? So this last one, that the public participation communicates to participants how their input affected the decision. That's a way to build trust. Each of these is a way to build social license. And one way to use this might be to take it to your Synergy group and say, hey, are we doing these? And if not, could we maybe try to do a few more to increase that trust, to increase the quality of our interactions and those relationships. The Code of Ethics for Public Participation Practitioners, so this is for those people who are doing that engagement. So the Darcy Allens of the world, who, this is for them, if they subscribe to IAP2 or subscribe to that code of ethics, is saying, here's how I'm going to carry myself. And so again, in your synergy groups, this might be something you take a look at and you go, hey, is my representative from Conoco or Shell or TransCanada or Encana acting in this way? And maybe if they're not, we could talk about how they could do things differently. So, that we ensure that all commitments made to the public, including those by the decision maker, are made in good faith. I mean, that's something that, for an ethical person doing engagement, you want to see that. And that might be something you put in a terms of reference, that this is how we expect people from companies to behave in our synergy groups. And so finally, this is on the back of your handout, is the spectrum of public participation. And so this, I think some people have seen before. We've talked about that there's different levels of public engagement. And so you might want to take a look at that and again, think about your synergy group and think, where are we on this spectrum? Are we at this informed level where we go to meetings and we get information and that's about it? Or are we closer to the consult or involve level where the community and the stakeholders actually have a part in the outcome that's achieved, and how are we doing that? And maybe you want to move towards consult or involve if what you're at is inform right now. So this just gives you sort of some language to use to talk about this. And as I was driving up today, I was thinking about this spectrum and then that pyramid that we had at the beginning, and really how the two, if you lie the pyramid on its side, it starts to look kind of like this, where at the empower level, like that's a really high level of engagement where you give the decision to the community. That's kind of like that co-ownership piece where you trust your stakeholders to make the decision that's right for you, and they trust you to make the decision that's right for them. So as we think about social license, community engagement, and different ways of doing that, and really raising the bar and doing it better, these are sort of some pieces that we can think about. So I'll stop talking now. More information, lots of information on IAP2 back there. You can email us. I've left some of my own cards at the back if you want to get in touch with me. Thank you very much.